Sup, Reitannites, Reitanna Seishin here, and I had a crazy-ass dream that I actually just wrote in my blog. It took, let's see, 6:30 right now. It's 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30. It took 5 hours to write. It was really vivid, and I remembered pretty much everything. And I'm like, I have to write this shit down. And, so I'm gonna read what I wrote. I'm not editing this at all, so if I stutter or whatever, it's just too long, and I don't want to take the time to edit this, because that's the whole reason why I'm on a narration hiatus. So, here we go. It's January 14th, 2017, and I lost Apple Bloom at a concert. What the fuck? This was the weirdest dream I've had in a long time. I remember many details, but it's like, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll try to keep everything in the right order, but I may not be able to remember everything that happened exactly when it happened. Now, if you don't feel like listening to this, I'll leave a link to this blog in the description of this video so you can read it instead, or whatever. So, I have an ex-friend named Ariel, but she appears in my dreams a lot. You see, in the last year that I knew her, she just became this horribly compulsive liar, was doing drugs, skipping beauty school even though she was paying to go there, and overall became a bad friend. I mean, she always had problems with lying and skipping high school, but it got way worse. So, in my dreams, she's the Ariel that I remember being a good friend, and this dream was one of those. Now, I know nothing of her now, so I don't know if she likes My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, but apparently she did in this dream. And you won't believe where we went. We went to a concert, but it wasn't just any concert. The main 7 from the Equestria Girls universe came to our universe to play an exclusive concert that only My Little Pony fans knew about. So, what I mean by 7 is that it was Twilight Sparkle, Pinkie Pie, Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, and Sunset Shimmer. Both Dash and Sunset Shimmer were playing were on guitar. The problem was, in our universe, their magic of friendship didn't work because there's no magic here, and they hadn't counted on that, but I'll get back to that in a moment. Apple Bloom wanted to see the concert too, since, of course, her universe knew about it because Twilight had to be there. Duh. A few other ponies had come as well, but none of the main 6. In fact, it was a random Pegasus that brought Apple Bloom to us, because apparently Ariel and I had somehow made an agreement to full-sit her at the concert, but the Pegasus couldn't stay. Apple Bloom was a bit nervous to be with us, especially since we knew her, but she didn't know us. And I'm sitting there like, I hope she doesn't figure out that I made her a serial killer. The odd thing was, she had a cutie mark, but it was a sparkly cloud with a happy face. Even that would be better than the stupid shield the Crusaders have, huh? Oh, and Apple Bloom wasn't wearing her bow, but a hat that Babs Seed lent her. I don't know why. So, the Rainbooms performed, and because everyone loved My Little Pony, they liked it despite the fact that they couldn't use their magic, which shocked them. By the time the concert was over, they seemed really upset. Sunset Shimmer was trying to be the positive one, telling the others that it was okay, and that everyone liked it anyway. But there was no cheering them up. In fact, poor Applejack was so upset she cursed for the first time in her life. She said, "Everything I thought I knew was bullshit." Then, for some reason, she turned into Vinyl Scratch. And Ariel and I were all like, oh, that makes sense. No wonder there are all those pictures on the internet showing AJ as Vinyl Scratch. Because they're the same pony! Of course, this isn't actually true. I guess in my dream, it was assumed that AJ and Vinyl had never been seen in the same place at the same time, so there was a theory that they were the same pony. And Vinyl Scratch was who AJ became when she didn't want to be herself anymore. Anyway, after the concert, Ariel, Apple Bloom, and I were walking around the merchandise hall, because concerts have entire halls like a convention instead of just a kiosk, didn't you know? But Apple Bloom was so small we lost sight of her. So we're running around trying to find her, but we got distracted by a room filled with sweets. And you know me, I wish I could eat nothing but sweets for the rest of my life. So I was stuffing my face with candy, cookies, and cake. Ariel wasn't being such a pig about it, which was odd because in real life she was definitely a pig. We finally found her and had to board this magical flying bus train so that we could get her back to her own universe, but we accidentally missed the main one and had to board the second one, which wasn't the right one. There were a lot of shady people, and apparently they all thought Apple Bloom was a stuffed toy because they all scared her to the point where she wouldn't talk. It became clear that this wasn't the right magical flying bus train when the conductor started warning us about the things that normally happened on this line. The first was that it went really fucking fast! Did I mention that these things had no roof? Yeah, so Apple Bloom's hat flew off, and she was like, Babs is gonna kill me! We had to hang on to that filly for dear life, too, afraid that she'd be blown away. But once again, we were distracted. All of a sudden, we were in this pitch-black tunnel, and surrounding us were pixels of every single color, which we could feel as tiny vibrations as we touched them. And when we touched them, we could hear the most wonderful, beautiful, calming music in existence. The pixels then filled the tunnels so that they were passing through our bodies, and the visual experience was so hypnotizing. I remember saying, I can feel the music! I sounded like some stupid hippie junkie, but it was true. The little pixels would hit my body, and the vibrations were so therapeutic. It was like Maynard James Keenan was in the same room and singing just for me. Hey, a girl can dream, okay? After we got through the tunnel, the surroundings were still dark, and it seemed like we were in a completely different universe. We were all still a little zoned out from the pixels, and Apple Bloom looked more like a stuffed toy than ever. So when we tried to speak to her, people would laugh and say, "Those stupid pony freaks think their toy is real." Then the conductor said, "Make sure to protect your children here, folks. They might get taken by the Snatcher. Keep your eyes peeled and look the Snatcher right in the eye to chase him away, but he'll come back. Stay alert." Staying alert was a difficult task when we all felt like we had taken a shitload of sleeping medication. Ariel and I had held on to Apple Bloom, squinting around for anything that might take her because we had no idea what the Snatcher looked like. We finally saw him when he tried to take her. He was sticky, pitch-black goo that moved around quickly, though he looked like the shadow of goo, not something actually material. He had two beady white eyes, and when he tried to take a child, he'd lash out to attempt to stick to it and pull it back into the darkness. Ariel and I kept trying to follow him, but he was too fast, so eventually we had Apple Bloom in the middle of us, and we were back to back so we could meet his eyes. We managed to fend him off a few times, but right before we finally exited the Snatcher's territory, he got the little filly, and we both started freaking out. A few other people had lost their children and were shouting at us for joking around, still believing that our baby pony was a toy. Those of us who had lost someone were dropped off in the Snatcher's territory, and we were told that we had to find where the Snatcher took them. He wouldn't kill them, but would hide them in other universes, so we had to go to those universes and locate them, but finding them wasn't going to be easy. First, we had to watch out in the distance for any sign of our young companions through a crowd of people and creatures that the Snatcher had placed as decoys. Ariel and I were still getting made fun of for looking for a stuffed pony, but then we saw Apple Bloom briefly as she ran down a hill and vanished in the crowd, so we sprinted ahead of everyone else to get to the area where we saw her, and there was a huge box of wood shavings with items sticking out. A couple people found their kids in here, as it was really deep, and I spotted a bit of pinkish red, which I grabbed, but this was a life-sized Apple Bloom that actually was just a toy. When we tossed it back and remained upset, people started thinking we were crazy. I told Ariel, if I don't get her back to Ponyville soon, Applejack is going to be horrified. She'll never trust me again. Because I knew her or something? I have no idea. That's when I realized I was never actually informed on how to enter their universe, which made me panic more. I assumed the original magic flying bus train took us to her universe or something. I don't fucking know, okay? The next trial was weird, and I find it insulting that my subconscious would do this to me. We had to get through an obstacle course filled with drugs, like fumes from burning crap, needles, pills, whatever that shit comes in. The point was to tempt everyone, distract them from not looking for their kids. Apparently, I was the only one who had never had a drug problem. Ariel had many times, so I ended up losing her to a room where everyone was smoking pot. People kept falling for the temptation, and as I passed the junkies, they were like, "Man, you gotta try this is some good shit." I had to keep telling everyone that I wasn't like them, that I didn't do stupid stuff like that. The hard part came when I had to climb a wall covered in needles with various drugs. I wasn't good at climbing, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It was hard enough not to prick myself with needles when I'm sewing, but I remembered that this was to save a filly, and that was extremely important to me. As I climbed, I did manage to stick myself a couple of times, but not deep enough for anything to enter my bloodstream. I'd actually tear the needles off of the wall and toss them to the floor for the junkies to fight over. Junkies were like zombies, man. Just replace the word junkies with zombies, and then replace anything drug-like with brains. By the time I was over, I had numerous needles that I had to pick from my body, but I wasn't feeling too sick, so I knew that not enough got into my system to where I'd be in danger of addiction or worse. I encountered this tall stick monster that was holding a big bucket of water. In the bucket, I saw a pinkish red color, and I lunged to pull out poor Apple Bloom. She was fine. Apparently the water was liquid oxygen. The monster sneered at me, but I wasn't sure why, and I carried the sodden pony away, ending up in an empty area that looked a lot like the Violence District in LSD Dream Emulator. I asked Apple Bloom if she was okay, but she just stared at me, grinning. Then she lifted up a hoof, and I saw a blue circular sticker, which I pulled off. To my horror, Apple Bloom disintegrated. On the underside of the sticker, it said, "Gotcha!" and I yelled in anger. On the spot where the fake Apple Bloom vanished was a rolled-up piece of parchment, so I took it and read it. It was very loopy handwriting that gave me directions where to go, so I took the street it told me to follow and went on from there. I think I was the only one who got through the drug trial. By the time I got to my destination, I was, once again, in pitch blackness, but I kept walking straight. Finally, it cleared, and I was in a forest. Still walking, I exited the forest and came to a cabin, in which I said, "No way. Can you guess where this is going? No? What if I told you a giant man with a long, shaggy beard came out to greet me? Yup, I was in the Harry Potter universe." This wasn't the first time. Not only that, but I had been aged down. I could tell because I was much thinner, my hair was a little longer, and the tooth I had gotten pulled a few years ago was back. Not only that, but the 2 teeth that got root canals when I was 16 had no fillings, so I was younger than 16. Hang on. Okay. My hair was blonde, I was the same height as I am now, so my only conclusion was that I was 14. For some reason, Hagrid, as well as pretty much everyone else at Hogwarts, were aware that the Snatcher had dumped something that wasn't supposed to be in their universe into their universe, so I was expected. I was still a muggle, though, so many charms had to be lifted in order for me to even be able to see the castle. Since I was a muggle from a different universe, this didn't count as exposure. Not only that, they were completely aware that they were in a book. Hagrid explained to me that it was a couple days after the second task of the Triwizard Tournament, so I realized that I was in the 4th book. That explained why I was 14. It was strange, because even though the characters knew they were in a book, they didn't know how the book would end, so Hagrid told me, "I know you've read the series and all." I can't do Hagrid's voice, but don't go interfering with the plot, you hear? Don't go telling everyone what's gonna happen, or that'll change the book. Me, "This is so cool!" I was dressed in robes to blend in, but still everyone knew who I was and why I was there. I attended some classes because in order to find what I was looking for, I had to answer questions about their universe. When I was in potions, the Slytherins were laughing at me, you know, because I was a muggle, and I was fascinated with everything they were doing because it was amazing. I went up to Pansy Parkinson and said, "You know, I've heard you Slytherins aren't very pleasant," but I smiled at her because I already knew everything about them and what would happen. Though when I saw Draco Malfoy, I couldn't help but smile at him because, well, I always fall for him in every dream I have with him in it. I think I saw him smirk, but I wasn't sure if that was him flirting back or if it was because he thought I was scum. Apparently, there were some rules to having me in their universe. Time was actually stopped, though the characters on the Hogwarts grounds were in motion for the sake of helping me. They were unable to speak of me after I left, even if they remembered me, so Rita Skeeter wouldn't be able to write about me. It's not that they weren't allowed to, it was that they couldn't. It was weird. I decided to follow the Gryffindors around, hanging out with, you guessed it, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. There were times when I had to stick my fist into my mouth and say, "Must not interfere with plot!" Transfiguration was cool, and Hermione was extremely impressed with how much I knew, and I told her, well, it was you who taught me a lot of it. I was disappointed that I wasn't able to do magic myself, even when Harry tried to let me use his wand, and I said to him, I didn't expect much. I am a muggle. In my universe, magic doesn't even exist. He and his friends were all fascinated by this information, but Harry remembered a time when he thought magic didn't exist, too. After Professor McGonagall had me answer questions about events that had happened in the first 3 books, I hung out with the trio outside, even though it was kind of cold, it being February. I explained to them who I was looking for. A talking adolescent female pony with pinkish red mane and tail. Wow, that is the wrong tail. I spelled it T-A-L-E, sorry guys, and yellow hide. I told them that she wouldn't look like a normal pony, that her head and body shape would be much different, and her eyes would be big and expressive. I ended up drawing a picture of her. Then Draco Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle came up to us and started jeering about the great Harry Potter mingling with a muggle from an inferior universe. Harry and his friends were about to defend me, but little teenage me couldn't help but go up to Draco and start flirting with him. I told him he was cute, and his expression looked a mix of disgust and flattery. Let me just mention, it's mostly because, like, the 4th movie was when everyone's hair looked amazing. Harry's, Ron's, Draco's, the Weasley twins, and I think this was when Hermione stopped looking like the way Hermione should look, but all the boys had just amazing hair. Where was I? Harry did not look happy. When the Slytherins had left, he asked me what that was about. I said, to be honest, I've always had sort of a crush on Draco, especially after seeing who played him in the movies. Hermione and Harry both asked, there are movies based on our book series? And Ron asked, what are movies? It was super weird when Harry later confided in me that he sort of had a crush on Draco too. And I was like, am I in the right universe? Are you sure this isn't a fan fiction? He told me that his character was written to have a crush on Cho Chang. I couldn't tell him about Ginny, so he had to do whatever was written about him, even if he was aware of his true feelings. I said, it must suck to not have any free will unless universes collide, and he nodded, but he said it wasn't too bad because he did like Cho a lot too, since she wasn't an ass like Draco was. I managed to pass all of the tests I had to go through, but there was one final trial. I guess you don't have to have magic blood to ride a broomstick? So I was to join the Gryffindor Quidditch team in a game of non-magical Quidditch, which had something to do with long sticks with foam at the end, looking like giant Q-tips. I don't know, but I was really bad at it. I ended up saying, it's not my fault, I can't move well in my dreams. We ended up losing against the Slytherin team, so my search for Applebloom couldn't continue. The thing was, no one knew where the filly was, not until I completed a series of events to unlock that information. So instead, they had me swim in the lake with a bunch of small tentacle creatures that would latch onto me, which stung. It was like they were just balls of jellyfish tentacles. I was supposed to collect them without getting stung, but I couldn't manage that either. Afterward, I took a break at Hagrid's. I ended up asking him, listen, something really bad happens at the end of this book. It's a matter of life and death. Am I still not allowed to tell anyone about it, not even Dumbledore? His expression became more serious, and he allowed me to inform him that Voldemort returns. He was horrified, naturally, and I told him the entire story of what happens in the maze, Cedric Diggory's death, the graveyard, and I was about to tell him about Barty Crouch Jr., but the sky had suddenly grown dark. It was weird because since time was stopped, it wasn't possible for it to be nighttime. Hagrid said he made a mistake by allowing me to tell him that, and we ran outside of the cabin. Every character, including him and I, had chains coming out of our chests, a metal loop at the end, and they were floating in the air horizontally. He told me I had to find Applebloom's chain and leave this universe quickly. To my great surprise, Draco found her first, and he ended up carrying her to me. She was shaking in fright, and when I took her, Draco was giving me this look, like he knew something bad was going to happen and he didn't want to stay. A hole formed in the ground, trying to suck me in, and I gripped Applebloom's chain loop tightly in my hand, but Draco didn't look like he wanted me to leave him, so I took his chain loop as well. Hagrid shouted at me, saying I couldn't take anything bad into another universe, or I'd upset the balance, and we'd be stuck between dimensions forever. But the three of us were sucked into the hole. Hang on. Oh my goodness. It was dark, and we seemed to be underwater, but were able to breathe. I was trying to tell Draco that he didn't have to be bad, that he could come with me. We were still stuck between universes, so my age hadn't returned to normal yet. In fact, Draco's hand was clasped around his tie, which he had taken off, and the other end was stuck where the hole had been. He told me he didn't want to be away from me because I guess he had fallen for me or something cliché, but he didn't want me to be stuck in limbo forever. Still, he also didn't want something bad to happen in his universe. He ended up kissing me and then whispered in my ear, "Come fix it." I still had a firm hold on his chain, but when he used his wand to open the hole back up, as it hadn't fully closed, the blast forced me to let go of not only his, but Applebloom's as well. I was shot back into his universe without either of them. This had broken so many laws of nature. Time resumed, but the sky remained dark. I think that comma was supposed to be a period. Anyway. All of the characters had free will, but the written events still had to happen. So, I don't know, it was weird. They could speak and interact with me, but I still couldn't actually be written into the story. Time kept trying to stop again so that it wouldn't upset the book, but I wanted to not only save Draco and Applebloom, but save the Harry Potter universe as well. Draco had told me to fix it, so I was going to try. Ready for another cliché event? Harry ended up falling for me too. I knew Draco would be upset, but I guess I went out with Harry. This is like a cringe-worthy fanfic where the author writes themselves as the character's love interest. Or those horrible ex-reader things. If you don't know what those are like fanfictions where the reader is supposed to be the one who falls in love with the characters. It's stupid. It is the worst idea ever, and I'm just like, no, just don't do that. But they're gonna do it. I told Harry I wish I could have gone to the Yule Ball with him, actually made it fun instead of unpleasant, but he said that might have kept him from finding out Hagrid was half giant before Rita could write about it in the Daily Prophet. He asked me what happened with Draco, and I told him he wasn't actually that bad, that he does bad things in the later books, but him falling for me had changed it somehow. I explained to Harry that I needed to speak to Dumbledore, but I wasn't able to as time started to speed up and it was almost the third task, which was in June, so we were like from February to June all of a sudden. Actually, I had to hold Harry's hand as tightly as I could because he was written to enter the maze, and even though he wanted to stay with me, he had no control over what his feet were doing. I ended up screaming at him about what happens, that Alastor Moody was not the real Moody. The real one was in the trunk with the many locks. Excuse me. Oh my god. The imposter had put Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire, and the Triwizard Cup in the maze had been turned into a portkey. I explained about Cedric's death, and Harry ended up saying, well, if I don't go, I'm not going to do a fucking British accent, well, if I don't go, Cedric's still going to get sent to the graveyard and die. I told him, I know, and it's horrible, but if you go, Voldemort will return because he needs your blood to complete the ritual. That's why I need to tell Dumbledore what's going on. You cannot enter that maze. He was trying his hardest to allow free will to trump his written actions, but just then another hole opened in the ground, and Draco came out, still holding Applebloom. He looked really upset that I was with Harry, but I said, it won't matter after I leave your universe. I have to take Applebloom back home, and then I have to go home. Both Harry and Draco said they wanted to come with me, that it was the only way to make sure Voldemort didn't return, and that Draco could be turned good. The hole was still open, trying to suck me back in because the filly and I didn't belong there, but both boys latched on to me as tightly as they could, and we were all taken away. I said that I didn't know how to get to the My Little Pony universe. I didn't know how to willingly change universes at all. We weren't falling, but swimming in the water that existed between dimensions. That's when Draco and Harry started arguing about who deserved to be with me, and I told them my real age, that I would be an adult once I entered a dimension that would return me to age 26. They started to wonder if they'd get turned into adults if they entered my universe, but I couldn't be sure whether they'd be 17 or if their age would be determined by the epilogue at the end of the 7th book. Then I also told them that I actually had a boyfriend back home, but said to Harry, I don't think it's me you should be focusing on. Isn't there something you want to tell Draco? This led to an embarrassing conversation between the two teenagers as we searched for Apple Bloom's universe. There seemed to be giant bubbles with images in them, giving me a preview of each universe. It was nighttime in all of them. Sorry, I'm not used to talking this much all at once. After Harry confessed that he had a crush on Draco, there was an absurd suggestion of a polygamous relationship between them and me, but I interrupted by telling them I found 3 bubbles, but wasn't sure which one was the My Little Pony universe. All 3 images were exactly the same, which I actually don't remember what they were. We entered the first one, and I felt a weird sensation as I was becoming a cartoon. Apple Bloom suddenly became her Equestria Girls version, and when I looked back at the boys, they were drawn in that style, which was weird. And don't ask me why Apple Bloom hadn't been a human in the human universes, because she just wasn't. Dreams don't make sense. We all ended up falling pretty hard onto the ground in the middle of nowhere, but I found a puddle and looked at my reflection. I was now in my late teens, as were the boys, but I was cradling a younger teenager that was Apple Bloom. Is this really what I look like here? She asked, looking in the puddle and feeling her head. Why's my head so big? This is the wrong universe, I told Harry and Draco. How do we get back into limbo? I managed to find the bubble to our universe to get back, said Draco. We don't belong here. Maybe we can try to make one of those holes open up like before, said Harry. I just imagine drawing all of this, just drawing us in these versions. It feels weird. Even though Apple Bloom was only a little shorter than me, I still hung on to her because I knew she'd become a pony again later. As a pony, she was like, the size of, not like a puppy, like a really large puppy. It's hard to explain. Bigger than my head. Bigger than my head! Become a pony again later. Both wizards started casting spells so that the Equestria Girls universe would expel us, and they finally managed to do it before any of the Equestria Girls characters could walk by and see us. Once in limbo again, we were still drawn in that style, but after we entered the second My Little Pony bubble, we all became ponies! I was now a young adult, and looked like the pony version of myself that I drew. We all landed in a fountain, and it was definitely Ponyville, but the fountain had been damaged, and the entire town looked abandoned. Apple Bloom stayed close to me, but when the 3 of us humans tried to walk, we were having immense trouble. Not only that, when I looked around and saw who was in the vicinity, I said, uh-oh. It didn't take long for us to be surrounded by 7 ponies that I recognized. Apple Bloom was shocked to be looking at herself, only the other one still had her bow. Pinkie Pie and Babs were there, but so were my versions of Marble and Limestone, as well as Minkie Pie. Oh god, we're in the Muffins universe, I told my group. I didn't even think this could happen. What's the Muffins universe? Harry asked. This is Ponyville. Oh wait. This is Ponyville, but why does it look so different? Said Apple Bloom. Why is there another me? And why? She spotted the other Apple Bloom's cutie mark. An apple stabbed with a knife. Carol, what's going on? It's going to be really hard to do all the bakers' voices one after the other. I usually record them separately. This is a fan fiction I created, I explained, nervous as the bakers eyed us in suspicion. They didn't look like they wanted to welcome us. In this universe, all 7 of these ponies are cannibalistic murderers. Even me? And Babs too? Pinkie Pie? Said Apple Bloom in horror. The wizards behind me, who had been turned into unicorns, weren't very happy either, having not known that I had a dark side. It's just fiction, but I have a feeling that now that we're in their universe, this could get very real, I said. Apple Bloom pointed out that Inky and Blinky Pie resembled Marble and Limestone Pie, but she didn't recognize the last one. I told her that Minkie Pie was created before Maud, so she was Pinkie's sister instead of Maud Pie. Who is Maud Pie? Were the first words that Pinkie spoke, her voice actually being my impression of her. Why, there are 2 of me, said Muffins Apple Bloom, also in my voice. Listen, we're not a threat, okay? We're all from different universes, and I'm actually the creator of this one, I tried to tell them. Babs looked ready to start wailing on me, and I was terrified because I had made her really strong, but Inkie Pie stopped her. Minkie, do your thing. I can't do their voices, Inkies and Minkies and Apple Blooms because I not increase all of them, but I alter the pitch in those. Even though I created her, seeing her face to face was actually just as terrifying as I made her sound. I knew what she was doing, and we stared into each other's eyes. I created you, I told her softly. I based you off of my own past. I'm the reason you're so troubled, why you were locked up, but I'm also the reason you got out, got reunited with your family, gave you friends, and gave you something to be happy about. I gave all of you bakers your personalities. If you kill any of us, all of our universes will be damaged. If you kill me, your universe will be stuck in time. Haven't you wondered why it's so dark?
We thought that was odd, yes,
she replied. It was weird hearing my voice come out of these ponies, which reminded me.
You know I'm not lying,
I said in Pinkie's voice, and every pony froze.
You know I'm not lying because you are me. I gave you the power to tell when some pony is lying because I can do it too, just not as well as you. You know I'm being honest because I don't lie.
Then I switched to Derpy's voice, looking at the Pegasus. Derpy's Minkie Pie's friend, so Derpy trusted her when she trusted some pony else. Wow! Exclaimed Derpy, clapping her hooves. Wowie zowie! I exclaimed in Pinkie's voice, which caused the party pony to gasp loudly. Wowie zowie! She repeated. Crap, I can't change from a southern accent to a Bronx. You really created us? Babs inquired in astonishment. God. Well, for 6 of you, I only created certain aspects, I explained in her voice, as close as I can get it without practice. In your canon universe, you're not serial killers, and crime doesn't even really exist. I switched to Inkie Pie. I did not create marble or limestone, but I gave them these appearances and personalities. My name is Marblestone, Inkie Pie corrected. Only because I accidentally confused your name with Limestone's, I replied, speaking in my normal voice now. You are originally Marble Pie, but because of my mistake, you're Marblestone Pie. Both of your canon versions look completely different, and Marble is, well, the exact opposite of you, Inkie. Minkie Pie is the only one of you that I completely created. The rest of you are just my versions of the originals. Who is Maud Pie? Pinkie demanded, and I shook my head. Your original third sister that was created after I made Minkie. Be glad I didn't give you a Maud, because she's really boring. Kara, I don't like this place. I want to go home, said Apple Bloom. That's my original voice? Asked Muffins Apple Bloom. Pretty close, I guess. She's right, though. We really do need to leave. Minkie, I know you believe me, I said, and she nodded.
She's telling the truth, she told the other bakers. Though I think you figured that out by now.
I cannot do Minkie's voice right now. I sound more like, I believe what I made Blossomforth sound like in Twilight's Fall. How are you going to get back to your universes? Blinkie Pie demanded, and I laughed at the bossy attitude I had given her. Harry and Draco need to use magic from their universe to open another portal, I said, looking back at the stunned stallions. Well, I guess, no, yeah, because they were young adults, so they wouldn't be colts. But then they quickly hopped out of the fountain. Harry was patting his body. Where's my wand? He wondered, but saw Draco's horn. I think it's on your head, he said. You're a unicorn. So are you, Harry laughed. Expelliarmus! A spark of red light hit Draco, and he was thrown backward, but there was nothing to disarm. Oops, sorry. Disarm's supposed to be capitalized. I'm losing my voice. Magic doesn't work that way here, I told them. There are no incantations, not like that anyhow. But that's perfect, maybe that'll kick us out. I turned to the bakers. Stand back, I don't want you getting sucked into limbo, too. Wills you ever come back? Derpy asked sadly. I can't promise anything, but maybe. They all looked rather disappointed, and I was too. Hang on. I keep having these little hiccups. And I was too. If I stayed in this universe, it'd give me a chance to actually find out what it feels like to actually kill someone without consequences. That way I could understand these characters better. Then again, even though I was a pony here, I loved animals way too much. I don't think I could kill one. But they didn't look like ponies from my universe. What a conundrum. Reducto! Cried Draco, blasting a patch of dead grass and dirt. Stupefy, Harry said, though he didn't stun anything because there was nothing to stun. That should also be capitalized. Just singed the grass. They both looked at each other. It feels weird. It's weaker, Draco complained, and Harry nodded in agreement. Maybe if we cast the same spell at the same time in the same place, it'll open a hole, he suggested. But what spell should we use? Harry, Draco doesn't have as much practice with certain spells you've learned this year to get through the third task, I said. Try the disarming spell again. Both unicorns aimed at the place in the grass that Draco had damaged, and in unison they shouted, Expelliarmus! I heard the bakers gasp as a hole opened, and I held onto Applebloom again as we were getting sucked toward it. I'll try to visit you guys, I shouted at my characters. They waved, and the four of us were plunged into limbo once more. I can't believe you made me a serial killer, Applebloom shouted at me. Actually, it wasn't me. It was the guy who originally made Pinkie Pie a killer. I just added on to it, I told her. Don't worry, it won't affect you or your universe in any way. So this one must be it, then, asked Harry, and I nodded. We went into the last bubble and landed in the same exact fountain, but it was intact, and Ponyville was alive and unharmed. Whoa, what a difference, Draco muttered. We were once again surrounded by ponies, but this time it was the main six, a few background characters, and both Princess Celestia and Princess Luna. I felt exhausted, releasing the filly in my hooves, and she ran to Applejack. What took y'all so long? She barked at me. We were worried sick. I had to ask the princesses for help. They only just got here, Twilight added. We had a huge mishap, I said. Please forgive me. I had to do a lot just to save her from being trapped in another universe. It ain't her fault, Applebloom said. She really did keep me safe. Actually, most of it was pretty fun. Celestia addressed me. I'm not gonna fucking do their voice. These two stallions are not from here, are they? She said, and I shook my head. I don't expect you to know where they came from. They're from the Harry Potter series. Which one? The princess laughed. The book series, the movie series, or one of the countless fan fictions? I was shocked, but smiled. The original book series, the fourth book to be specific. But I had just remembered. I needed to tell Dumbledore something. Cedric Diggory is going to die, if he hasn't already. You've interfered with the plot? She asked sternly. No wonder everything is off balance. Didn't they warn you not to do that? Yeah, but Draco wanted me to change it, and no one else wants Voldemort to return either, I said. Celestia shook her head, looking back at her sister. I'm going to need you to help this girl get back to her own universe, Luna, she said. I'm actually on very good terms with Dumbledore. I'll return these two wizards, and I'll have a talk with him. If we return, we're going to act as we were written to do, Harry protested. I'm sure that's perfect grammar. I possess magic much different than wizards in your universe do, she told him. Some may say it's stronger. I will be able to hold you in place while I speak to Albus. Our worlds will remain imbalanced until we are all returned to our proper places. Draco and Harry approached me, looking sad. See, this is why I can only do narrations in increments, because I start to lose my voice. We want you to visit us again, said Harry. If you match our age in our universe, there really shouldn't be a problem, right? Asked Draco, and I laughed. We'll see. I didn't want to tell the bakers this, but I don't think I'll be able to travel like this again. Magic doesn't exist where I come from, I said sadly. You'd be surprised, Celestia argued with a smile. It's small, but it's there. As long as you don't try to change plot lines again, you're welcome to visit any universe. How do I do that? How did you do it today? Said Luna. I thought a moment, but it clicked. I'm dreaming, I concluded. The princesses nodded, and Celestia pulled the chains from Draco's and Harry's chests with her magic so that she could hold on to them, and Luna did the same with me. Let's get you all back to where you belong, said Celestia. The alicorns ripped open 2 different holes. I waved goodbye to Harry and Draco, and they waved back. Despite everything, Applebloom was also waving, and finally I was back in limbo, and Luna was able to find my universe and place me back in my own bed. She said something to me, but I never got a chance to hear it because Michael was waking me up at that moment. I remember groaning a lot. At some point in the dream, I remember thinking, I've got to visit my Reitanna fiction universe at some point. Of course, now that I'm awake, I doubt universe hopping is going to be something I can do, lucid or not. My dreams just drop me wherever, and if I'm lucid, I still can't decide where I want to be. Hell, sometimes when I try to ask Satan to help me in a sticky situation, he either turns out to be some dude in a costume or he doesn't show up at all. He used to show up all the time. Even flying has become rather difficult for me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, on this blog, I believe the entry is called "My Dreams Have Storylines" or something like that. It'll explain the whole Satan thing. But yeah, that was my dream. I can't even describe how scary it was to be face to face with the Bakers. I was sure it was going to turn into a nightmare. As for Apple Bloom's cutie mark, I think that meant she was supposed to be from a fanfiction universe, and not the canon one. But what could a sparkly, happy cloud represent? That would also explain why Applejack was basically Hannah Montana. So strange. Plus, where were all the other My Little Pony fanfiction universes? I probably just didn't look hard enough. Anyway, I haven't had a vivid one like that in a while, and what's more, it actually wasn't a nightmare for once. I'm glad I remembered it fully when I woke up. Now it's documented, so even if I forget it, I can read it over. Yay! I wish we could understand. Oh, wait, I wish we understood dreams better. Holy crap. So, yeah. Part of me doesn't feel surprised that Celestia knew Dumbledore. Oh my god, that was so bad. And if I recall correctly, I think some of the questions that Professor McGonagall asked me were also from the Harry Potter video game, and the questions didn't even make sense because they weren't actually from the Harry Potter video game. I don't know. It actually looked more like a couple of other dreams I've had in the past. I often revisit certain aspects of previous dreams. Like I said, my dreams have storylines. I'm sleepy. So yeah, that was that. I hope you enjoyed this ridiculous dream as much as I did. And, you know, I almost feel like at some point I'm probably gonna draw myself, because I'm surprised I haven't drawn myself in Equestria Girl style yet. Myself, Harry and Draco, and then Harry and Draco as ponies. I don't know. Whatever, fuck you. So make sure to leave a like on this video, because if you don't like this video, you're gonna lose your voice permanently. As I feel like I might have. Just kidding, I'm over-exaggerating. Make sure to click the notification bell. Click the little bell. And also make sure to subscribe, spread the universe. I've said universe so many times. Spread the word of awesome. I've become a Reitannite, and I shall see you later, alligators and crocodiles. Goodbye.